this episode, I interview Donald Lopez. He studied mechanical engineering at the University of California, Santa Barbara. I'm Connor Dixon. I'm here with Donald Lopez, and he's a mechanical engineer that went to UCSB. What was your college experiences like at UCSB and going there? And what was some of your strengths and weaknesses that you had going to a school like UCSB that's on the beach and is considered one of the top party schools in the nation?
Great question. I love going to UC Santa Barbara. Of course, when I first applied there, I actually knew more about the engineering program than I did about its, being well known as a party school. I knew it was near the beach, but that wasn't really the main attraction for me. It was actually the engineering program. I was surprised, obviously, and it was a pleasant surprise to know that it was such a social school and a party school. Especially, I was a little bit more timid coming out of high school, I would say. So I think it kind of helped me get out of my shell, especially being in an engineering program where everybody is like-minded. People are very social. People want to work together, want to hang out together. I think that was definitely helpful. One thing that I never did in high school, which I never felt I needed to, was I didn't study often. So that actually was a struggle my first year in UC Santa Barbara, because I felt, okay, maybe I can carry that into college and not study. I found out very quickly that is not feasible. But the beauty of going to a school like Santa Barbara is that the engineering program, a lot of the students got to know each other. They wanted to hang out. They wanted to study together. So that helped me tremendously, making really good friends. And in the end, like when you work as an engineer, you work with a lot of people in person. So it almost prepares you for that. I've taken classes at other UCs just for the summer, and it's much more competitive. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially for people who can work on their own. But going to UC Santa Barbara really did prepare me better for how the work environment is, in that you work with other people. You need to be able to accept that some personalities are more difficult, others are very easy. All of that, it kind of helps prepare for that. The social aspect of it, for sure, there were a lot of distractions. So I think that aspect of it also proved difficult certain years. But it's really just coming down to, hey, your friends help push you to study, to do your homework, all of that, especially once you start taking shared classes. So I think all of those things, right? There was a good and the bad, but it's about balancing the distractions with the actual work that's required.
And what inspired you to become an engineer? Was there a specific point in your life where you're like, oh, I want to do this, and that's why I want to go with my life?
Yeah, so that one's almost a cheap answer, because I knew since I was about 5 years old that I wanted to be an engineer. I had zero clue what an engineer did. My first grade teacher asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, but at the time I obviously didn't have an answer. A lot of kids maybe say police officer, firefighter, doctor, etc. I actually had no clue, and I just asked, oh, what can I do with math? She's like, you could be an engineer. Kind of just planted the seed from there, yeah. And then since then, even though I didn't have a clue what an engineer did till I was in college, that's what I knew what I needed to be that, and that's what I wanted to be.
And would you change anything with your college experience at UCSB, or do you think it played out well and you like your path you've gone on?
Yeah, I don't know that I'd change anything. I mean, I could see myself going maybe the route of more focus on the fluid dynamics portion of it, because that was my favorite topic. I didn't even look for jobs in that because I knew a lot of friends that worked at my previous company at C&D Zodiac. And so because of that, it's like, okay, I'm going to follow where my friends are. And I didn't really follow my passion in engineering, but I also did like design. So it's not as if I settled in terms of the engineering work I was going to do. It is just more simple when you compare design to fluid mechanics, right? That's much more complex. But that would also probably have required that I go into my master's and maybe do a little bit more schooling before I can do something like that. And the job pool is more limited.
So what is one of the main problems that you faced throughout college and your jobs? I know you worked at Zodiac, now you work here at Adience. What's been the main problem that you faced that's stuck with you this whole time, that's a difficult one to get rid of? Or is there one that you had that pops up that is happening multiple different jobs?
Yeah, I think I guess going more generically it's always comes down to requirements management. because that is actually what I have my master's in, is in systems architecture, which focuses heavily on validation and verification. So with requirements management, that helps you get from the beginning of a project, find out what are the needs of all the stakeholders. So anything that interfaces with a system would need to be identified then with everybody who's a subject matter expert, or even just a regular stakeholder, a passenger, a flight attendant, etc. Those getting flown into the design, there's always a break. Maybe there's a good start of that, in even with the big OEMs like Airbus or Boeing, where they may start with that, and then somewhere down the line, the people don't truly understand where that need came from. So there's a break of almost of communication or of knowledge management of why certain things are done a certain way. I think that's always been a struggle, and I think it continues to be a struggle with a lot of companies, because you get to the end goal of where you think it's the end goal of a design, and you say, oh, look, we've met all the requirements, but in reality, there's certain things that maybe you didn't meet or don't fulfill the original need of that requirement.
And what would you give advice, if you could give any advice to your younger self or any people that don't know much about engineering that try to want to get into it, what would be your biggest advice to people going into engineering?
Going into engineering, I think probably just try to find where your passion will be in. I really had no idea I was going to go into aerospace. I had some clue of what I wanted to do, but I think maybe studying or using tools like Arduino or some of those things where you can build things yourself, I think those are very helpful, because then you can not only be prepared for when you get to that math or to those classes, but also then you kind of get an idea of what you really want to do. I didn't do a lot of extracurricular activities in school, which I kind of regret. There were a lot of projects like the Baja car project, things like that, that would have been a lot of fun to do, that were extracurricular, but I just didn't want to take extra classes, right? So signing up for things like that, or the Society of Engineers always have events and things that you can learn from people in the industry, get into projects, things like that. I mean, really getting a hands-on experience, I think, is really ultimately a good recommendation for anybody thinking of going into engineering or already in engineering.
So what is your main advice, and what do you think people should look to get into with a college? What should people see in a good college for engineering? What do they want to find in that?
Yeah, I think it's the resources that they have. I think one big one that a lot of schools lack, for example, is maybe a machine shop. If you're going into design, mechanical design, because going into mechanical design, CATIA SolidWorks, you can create anything beautiful, it all looks great, but then you get to the point where you need to manufacture things. It's hard to understand that unless you've gone through it yourself. You have to throw things on a 5-axis machine, a CNC, a mill. It's limited, right? You have to turn the part so many times. Certain designs will be literally impossible to create without extra tools or setups that are required. With additive manufacturing nowadays, that becomes a little bit easier. 3D printing allows you to really make designs that were previously impossible on a CNC or previous manufacturing processes. But I think if those resources exist at the school, it helps you with the manufacturing side of it, which I think a lot of schools don't put enough focus on. Because in the end, we need to be able to make all of these things. There's a lot of things that you can design, but if you never make it, you might not have the true grasp of what it takes to get it there as well.
And what do you think with your job and your company? How do you think it's going to look in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years with advancements of computers and design softwares and AI? And how does that change the landscape of your company and job?
We'll definitely be able to do it faster. I hope that with AI, maybe we can start having that create at least initial models for us or initial mock-ups. The difficulty always lies in that each component needs to have basically a check by multiple people. So we'll never be able to just have AI do all of that, but at least to get us started, it can be a great way of getting us, okay, here's the concept we have. AI basically pulls your models and then creates something out of it. Absolutely can see that being as something that we can use to sell a product or early conversations with the customer, and then taking that and basically creating something real from that. I think those will be powerful. Obviously, make things faster. Aerospace sometimes is a little slow to take on new technologies. So at least in the sense of our work I think it'll help us in the aircraft. Okay, well, we'll have to wait and see what technologies companies like Panasonic, IFE manufacturers, what they do as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that we'll see a change there for sure.
So what is a day in the life in your current job right now? What does it look like for you? And is there engineering built into it, or are you not as much into the design engineering currently?
Yeah, so I don't do as much design, but I do touch the design a lot. So in my job as product development manager, I have a long list of roles and responsibilities. So it really comes down to just doing whatever the company needs in that moment. Ideally, my position is looking through development. I help the team with any designs, things of why we should do things, why we shouldn't do things, try to standardize what we can, make sure that what we're designing is manufacturable. That's another important part. But then we get to the point where, okay, we have design or we have certification. Okay, do we have an issue on these parts? Let's look at the tolerance analysis. Let's look at the design. Where can we fix it? Maybe we didn't do a proper consideration of the manufacturing process, like on thermoforming or injection molding. Those type of things. So I'll sit with the team and look through drawings, redline it for them, pull designs, and just make sure that whatever we're putting out there is manufacturable and functional.
Can you explain what you do and what, not what you do, but what Adient as a company does, and what do you make for the aerospace company?
Of course, yeah. So, and just as a disclaimer, so we're Elevate Aircraft Seating now, once known as Adient. We create business class seats for various aircraft, primarily Boeing aircraft. 787 is our main aircraft that we work for, but we've also done 777. We also do a few aircraft on Airbus A321 for several customers, a few that we haven't divulged yet, but at least the ones that are public, Qatar, American Airlines, and United are just examples of that. And we just do business class seats. That's it. So it is a suite, not just the seat itself. So it's a little bit of a differentiator from previous business class on aircraft. So it's an actual little suite where you can turn it into a bed mode, have a door, and have some privacy. And of course, a large IFE in-flight entertainment screen with all sorts of games and movies and videos, of course.
If you weren't an engineer, what do you think you would have? What career and jobs do you think you would have had?
I don't know, probably in and out manager. I really don't know, because since I was little, I wanted to be an engineer, so I couldn't. It was hard for me to imagine anything else, and it actually gave me anxiety as a kid, thinking, what if I don't become an engineer? Which did push me harder in school to make sure that I got good grades in math, science, specifically those, but even just good grades in general. The thought of not being an engineer was a little scary because I didn't have a backup plan.
So engineer was your dream since first grade teacher ever since.
That's it, yeah. And luckily, I got to thank her a few years ago when I was in the area, so I was able to give her the thanks for that. So it was nice. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Donald. That'll be all. Thank you, everyone.